Hey, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So Dave goes to his office. He's sitting in his office, and strangely, the most bizarre thing happens. A bear walks into his office and says, "Hey, we're out of coffee in the coffee room." And then the bear turns around and walks out. Dave's like, "What is going on here?" And he ignores it, thinks maybe he's hallucinating or something. He leaves, he goes to his house, he comes back the next day. He's sitting in his office. Again, a bear appears and says, "The air conditioning is going to go out," and turns and walks out. And Dave is like, "I don't know what is going on here." But sure enough, the air conditioning went out, goes into the break room, discovers there's no coffee. He's like, "I must be going crazy." Leaves, comes back the next day. Bear reappears in his office again and says, "You're getting fired today." And Bear turns around and he disappears. Dave is panicked, runs down the hall to his manager's office and says, "Am I getting fired?" And the manager says, "Yeah, well, I was going to do it later in the day. I wasn't planning to do it." "How did you ever find out?" He said, "Well, this bear appeared 2 days ago, told me we're going to be out of coffee, then we were out of coffee. He said the air conditioning's going to go out, and the air conditioning went out, and he told me today that I was getting fired. Who the heck is this bear?" The manager says, "Well, he's the bearer of bad news." Now that Jeff is no longer president, I'm responsible for bad jokes. But the truth is, in life, sometimes we see things coming and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we think we're in charge of our own future, and sometimes we got to simply let go and understand that maybe not everything is in our own control. It's human nature, as I've explained many times before, that we plan for the future, and the reason for that is because we're such poor hunters. If we were better hunters, then we wouldn't have to plan so much. We could track down an animal easily. But it's because we're humans that we plan for the future. We ask children from their youngest age, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Which means, what's your plan? But every adult ought to add to that question, what do you want to be when you grow up right now? Right now is what's critical. You don't have to know what you want to be when you grow up. You just have to have some idea about what you want to do now, and then maybe it'll change. Maybe it'll be the same. But as you know, life is what happens when you're busy making plans. You must have heard the phrase many times, "Man plans and God laughs." Well, this week in this morning's Parsha, we actually have the opposite. And that is that God plans, but man laughs. That is, God has an idea for what's supposed to happen for the Jewish people, but the Jewish people decide otherwise. Clearly, God, through Moses, is asking the spies in this week's Parsha to develop a strategy for conquering the land. God's not asking, can we conquer the land? God has infinite capacity and belief in the Jewish people that they can accomplish whatever's set out before them. And the opening verse of the Parsha tells us very, very clearly, "Uri'item et haaretz mahi ve'ta'am hayoshev aleha hechazakhu," right? That they're supposed to go into the land of Israel and see what kind of country it is. What kind of people live there? Are they strong or are they weak? Are they few or are they many? Is the land good land to live in or is it bad? Do the cities have fortification or are they open? Is the soil rich or poor? Is there a lot of wooded land or just open spaces? That is a set of questions about how you conquer a land, not about whether or not the land is conquerable. And then I don't want you to forget for just 1 second what the actual beginning of the Parsha says. Shelach lecha anashim v'atur ha'aretz. Send spies, send messengers into the land to see Asher ani noten livnei Yisrael, the land that I will give to the Jewish people. Asher ani noten livnei Yisrael, the land that I'm giving to the Jewish people. Not the land that might be good for the Jewish people, but the land that I have promised to Abraham, the land that will fulfill the promise, that keeps up God's side of the covenant. The critical phrase, Asher ani noten livnei Yisrael, I'm giving it. Not maybe I'll give it. Not maybe it will become your homeland, but in fact it will be. There's no ambiguity. It is a fait accompli. It's a done deal. But like the spies, we too need a plan for how we're going to live our lives. We need a strategy. We need a blueprint that must include both long-term and short-term goals. And those goals must be based on good intelligence. And sometimes based on the information that we have in our lives, we decide to change course. And sometimes we even decide to change our goal. But that's based on looking and seeing. It's about understanding our own capacity, our own abilities, our own talents, and applying them. Sometimes we change our goals, and sometimes we change our strategies for achieving those goals. And that's why there's a comment by the Kli Yakar that is so important. Takshe al divrei hameraglim. Listen to the words of the Magrim. She'amru efes ki az ha'am hayoshev ba'aretz. The Kli Yakar says that the Jewish people's greatest obstacle is that they don't see a route towards their success. Efes ki az ha'am. They don't see that they can do it, that they're nothing, that the Jewish people are nothing in their own eyes. The Kli Yakar says the greatest obstacle to your achievement is believing you can't do it. The Kli Yakar says sometimes in life we face challenges and we don't see a pathway out. We don't see a pathway forward. And so we become desperate. Any time in life in which you feel you have no choices, you feel you have no options, you feel there is no path forward, is the darkest moment. It's a moment in which we all feel desperations, and that's why the challenges that these spies face is overwhelming, because they don't see a pathward forward. If you watch in this morning's Parsha, the Jewish people become enraged and deeply afraid that there is no path forward. And they say to Moses, you brought us out to the desert to die? We would have rather stayed in Egypt as slaves and lived. They didn't see a pathward forward. And they challenged Moses' leadership. Instead of listening to Kalev and Hoshea ben Nun, they fed off the negative. It's easy in life to feed off the negative. It's easy to spiral out of control when we think we have no pathward forward. All we can hear is the negative. All you can hear is the words, you can't. Well, I say to you that the message of this morning's Parsha is very clear. If all you can hear in your life is you can't do it, you never were able to, you'll never be able to in the future, it's time to listen to a new voice. It's time to listen to a voice of encouragement, a voice that recognizes your gifts. There's a wonderful movie called Mr. Holland's Opus. It's a movie in which a music teacher has a child who is born profoundly deaf. And there is one line in the score of that movie that just makes you tear up. And John Lennon wrote it. It's called Beautiful, Beautiful Boy. He says the following line. I'm not going to sing it. Say thank you. Before you cross this street, take my hand. Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. So I say to you simply this morning, until you find your plan, until you find your path, take my hand, or at least take the hand of someone who has your back, and listen to a voice of encouragement. Shabbat Shalom. We continue with Musaf, page 184. Chatzi Kaddish, please rise.